5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So our conversation has already been going for an hour before we've joined you, beautiful, lovely, lovely people.
Hello, Homer.
Hello,
And Lee,
Homer.
thank you for liking earlier. Hello, Lee. How are you doing, dude?
Yes, thank you very much, Lee. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Ange. Bloody hell. Hello, darling. How are you? It's been a while. What's going on over at Mike playing guitar? Hello, Mike. Evening, gents. I've been waiting since past. Oh, you absolute hero. All right, everybody. First on the agenda, you may all be aware that, unfortunately, as seems to be happening too much of late, we have lost another one of the music brotherhood community type things. Our good friend on the left there, Mr. Brian Carpenter.
Yeah. Anyone who used to come down Southend will know Brian.
Yes, lovely, lovely man. Really, I mean, I'm not going to pretend I knew Brian super well, but he was pretty much always at every gig. He was always thoroughly enjoying himself. We know that he really appreciated and loved his music, and everybody really appreciated and loved Brian.
Yeah.
So a very, very lovely man, well loved by all, who sadly we are not going to be seeing his face around anymore, which really, really sucks, to be honest. So, and he was most well known for his Womble obsession. So that was
also playing the tambourine.
Yes.
Used to get him up on stage to play the tambourine.
Playing the tambourine, and I think this is him on stage with looks like Solar 9. That's definitely I recognise that
Paul,
beautiful hair anywhere. So that's Mr. Paul, and so very sad, and he is now reunited with his good friend Michael, who passed away not too long ago as well. So
I knew Michael quite well. And I always spoke to Brian, of course, because they were just such lovely players.
Yeah, two really, really
nice,
lovely
really
guys
nice
who, and it's not
really
going to
miss them.
Yes. So for those of you who know Kevin, Brian's son, please give him loads of love, loads of support. It's not even a word. Support. And as a community, I know for you guys, especially down the Cow, you've taken a lot of hits recently with losing a few people. So make sure you're all there for each other, look after each other, and help kind of keep your spirits up through all these rather shit times that everyone seems to be going through. So much love to you all, guys. And yes, indeed.
Let's say hello to Rob and TL. Thanks for joining us. Nice to see you both.
Hello, gents. Right. So you know what these streams are about. Me and Simon, we build up our level of things to talk about, and then they end up just splurging out when we're trying to do music streams. So it's like, no, we need to have a good old talk, bust our chops, so to speak, verbally wise. So I have kind of pre-prepared some subjects. Rob said, rest in peace of legend Brian, played his 70th bash at the Cow Telescope, still got the badge, and the mini Womble, him and the rest of the Wombles gave us that night. Oh, bless.
I think I've got one of their Wombles at home somewhere.
Have you?
So, yeah.
Oh, it was legendary. Yeah. So it wasn't the same after Mike left us. Sort of brother in Womble, Brian, just didn't feel the same.
Yeah.
So yes, we have a whole plethora of subjects to talk about. But if you guys have any subjects you would like us to talk about, just throw them our way. You know us. We are more than happy to dive into anything, even if we don't know jack shit about it, which is quite a lot. We just bumble our way through.
Most things. Right. What did you want to talk about today?
Oh, right. Well,
what are you starting talking about today?
Okay. The first subject is actually something you brought up to me during the week, which is very, very interesting, which is noise-cancelling headphones.
Oh, right.
Yes. So this Simon brought to my attention, sent me a little article, and it's about, am I right in saying it's about the fact that they're finding that people who use a lot of noise cancelling headphones, is it struggling? They're now struggling to understand or hear speech.
So there's a couple of things here. So there's been a couple of reports and figures that have been taken that more and more people, when they watch YouTube, so a lot of people don't watch conventional terrestrial, not terrestrial, but TV. They spend most of their time on iPads and computers watching YouTube and online. Really?
I don't watch telly.
And even for people who are watching telly.
Hello, Nicholas, darling. Mwah.
Lord Nick, good evening. They're watching stuff with subtitles. So they will watch programs on TV with subtitles, even though they've got perfect hearing. They're all sitting with their family watching TV, or people watching on computers, iPads and stuff like that, and they'll be watching with subtitles. And also the use of noise cancelling headphones has obviously, since the use and the availability of this new technology has exploded, that's been increasing as well. So what they're finding are there's a greater number of young people, and they tend to be kind of late teens to kind of late 20s, even 30s. No, I don't think even 30s. It's kind of mid to late 20s from what I read, where they're coming in with hearing problems. So basically, they're struggling to be able to understand speech. So in a noisy environment, they're struggling to be able to understand speech, or even if it's not a particularly noisy environment. Mark, hello, dude.
Hello,
Nice to
dude.
see you, man.
And by the way, Mikey said, I have shaved all my hair off today, and it feels so odd. Welcome to the club, darling.
Why'd you do that, Mikey?
Are you becoming a thug? Are you? You're going to get an earring next, aren't you?
I
Oh,
remember we played someplace, and the bloke was going, "You and the skinhead get on all right." Anyway, that's another story for another day. So people are struggling to hear. So lots of kids going through uni and college are going in saying that in the classroom they're struggling to understand what the lecturer is saying, and they can hear the words, they can hear the lecturer speaking, but it sounds like complete gobbledygook to them.
so
They're struggling to understand the words.
It's like when we talk,
And people,
what the rest of the world hears.
and when people are watching things like YouTube or things on TV, they're struggling to understand what they're saying, and they're having even though it's not like they've got the Hoover running or anything else like that, just having the TV on, they're struggling to understand what's being said. And so when they go for hearing tests, they go and see an audiologist, and again the numbers are going up quite considerably, and there's a real spike, and it seems to be that I'll get to that in a bit. They've got perfect hearing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with their hearing. So then they have to look at other areas. And what they're finding is that their brains are having trouble decoding the speech that they're hearing. So it sounds like a load of sounds and it sounds like a load of noise, but they can't actually understand the words.
Because they're so focused on the subtitles that they're not...
So there's a thing called the McGurk effect that we've spoken about before. Where it's something like between 70 and 80% of what you hear in speech you take in through your eyes as opposed to through your ears. So it's very easy to fool the brain with things like that. It's that they can't decipher. There's another thing called asphasiacs, where they're unable to speak and stuff, but they're able to pick up on cues. They're supposed to be natural lie detectors. So there's certain conditions that are joined with that. So that's kind of the background in it. And one of the theories, so there's a lot of audiologists that have got together and they're saying we need a lot more research into this. And they're saying that because people are using noise cancelling headphones, they're getting a more kind of concentrated version of stuff. It's more focused, and so the brain's getting less. the brain's getting less equipped. So there's a thing in hearing called focus. When you listen to an orchestra, you can see the orchestra playing, but you can focus in on the flutes, or you can focus in on the cellos, or you can focus in on one instrument. So you can hear many elements, but your brain's able to go, I can take in all this information, but I know what a flute sounds like. I know what a cello sounds like.
I suppose,
and I can tune into
through
it.
training in life, isn't it? By
exactly.
being in noisy environments, so you can go, right, I can hear all this miasma of noise, but I can go there.
Miasma, that's a beautiful word. That's a very beautiful word.
But then, I suppose if you are used to an isolated situation...
Yeah, so it's almost like the brain's becoming less trained to do that.
Brain's becoming lazy.
In a way. And they've seen this with certain children who have... autism, where they're struggling with they get overwhelmed by noise and stuff. Like, there was a friend of ours I was talking to on Wednesday, and he was saying he kind of gets like that a little bit. So his kid, when his kid's kind of screaming and stuff like that, it suddenly gets a bit too, and he feels a bit
as
overwhelmed.
Mike said, what probably makes the situation worse, most earbuds and AirPods and stuff nowadays are noise cancelling.
Exactly, yeah. So that seems to be one of the theories that has come out. And what was I going to say? Yeah, so they want more research done into it. But that was it. There seems to be a massive spike since lockdown. So since COVID, this has become an issue.
Everything's gone shit since COVID, hasn't it?
Yeah, but that's really interesting. So they're saying that during that period, a load of children and young adults were... miasma is an absolutely orgasmic word. Oh.
Phil just said, currently watching the stream with subtitles on. Oh, that must be a right treat.
But that's interesting, isn't it? Because it's translating as we're talking, and sometimes it will come out with
okay, we need
rubbish.
to go down the Blackadder route. Quantum fibularities. Please tell me what that came up with.
Yeah, so that's the concept of that, and that's the background with that.
It's crazy, isn't it? And
that really is
slightly scary.
But it's also interesting because there's, you talk about evolution, and very often people say, well, we've never seen evolution in our lifetime. People haven't suddenly grown another arm and leg and stuff like that. But there's lots of things.
I've seen what you've got in your trousers. That's like an extra leg.
So
it's got toes and everything.
And quite a hairstyle to boot. So there's
I just now got an image of you just standing there proud, winky out, but with a mini Simon's face and a mini, just like a mini you with a mini mop of hair like on the end, like.
Or like a kind of 50s Buffon type dude.
Oh, that'd be a kind of rockabilly.
Yeah. Yeah. So. I forgot what I was going to say there.
Or like one of those little trolls,
Everything out and right. Yeah, so that's just an interesting thing. So during lockdown and stuff, a lot of kids were kind of in their rooms, headphones or whatever like that, and that length and period of time seems to have affected the way that their brain connectivity has worked, but also as well. There's other things that, like, there's a neck condition that's come up because people are constantly like this with their iPads, and because they're holding their weight not straight but down like this. There's a kind of an evolution there in that people are getting a neck syndrome in I can't remember which vertebrae it is, but it seems to be consistently in a certain vertebrae because they're holding the weight of their skull. Your head's one of the heaviest limbs you have. And it's causing a lot of people to have neck and upper back pain as well.
Oh, blimey. Lord Nick says nails. What have I missed there? Have I missed something? Probably. Neil said my asthma is a new word. I will try to use it tomorrow. Thank you, Lord. Trousers gone. See,
I like that.
Due to my brain tumour, I have trouble filtering when in a crowded room. My brain is slowly repairing. Rewiring. Sorry. Yeah. Will the used brains rewire as they get into the workforce? I think it will rather quickly.
So that's one of the problems that a lot of these young adults are having, is when they're in the workforce, they're starting up, they are finding it massively difficult. So you're absolutely right in saying that there's plasticity in grey matter, TL. Your
in
brain,
the period from like growing
especially
up,
when you're young, your brain's very plastic. So.
yeah, so a lot more damage can be done in that period that is not going to be able to repair itself in adulthood.
No, so there's damage that is more likely to have repair. But
really?
yeah, as you get older, that regeneration slows down. So especially with kind of a lot of alcohol or a lot of drugs, that really does start to degrade the brain quite considerably. And where there's no let up, the brain doesn't actually start to repair itself.
Yeah.
So then you get degradation that becomes permanent.
Is there an age range for that where basically the brain...
It gets worse from, I think, about the age of 43 or so. But it
sounds about right.
It gradually starts to slow down.
We're a prime example.
So when you're like between the ages of kind of, I mean, it's rapid at the beginning, but between 2 and 15, again, this is as far as I know, 2 and 15, there's a lot of rewiring, there's a lot of manipulation and stuff, but that's why usually once you get to kind of 13, 14, 15, people start to get set in their ways, because the brain starts to stop
solidify
as rapidly transforming and repairing itself and be plastic.
Leanne says, a little bit late, but lovely tribute to Brian. Watching, was that F1 car launch on the other TV. Cow and Telescope won't be the same, but we're all extremely close and have each other. Yeah, exactly. You do have you're a tight knit group who sort of really look after each other.
But then it's also a bit cliquey in certain points.
Yes, it is a little bit.
It's a bit of a shame.
So, yeah. Don't be afraid of the outside world coming in, people. You know, your clique is nice, but...
But sometimes when I've played there as well, it's like there's one group moaning about another group moaning. But that's just people in life, isn't it? So
that's rock pubs. That's generally pubs like that will have their little...
cliques.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's just human beings. Right, okay. Thoroughly interesting, Simon. Thank you very much. Well done.
Homer. Apparently, it is really hard to get young people to answer phones at office jobs, as they are so used to texts and emails and find phone calls so alien.
I know someone who she had sort of like... I don't like answering the phone. So, and she was a photographer. So I'm like, well, what happens if people call you? I'll just ignore it. There's that very strange thing, isn't there? Of I suppose again, it's the path of least resistance that we talk about a lot, where you know that you have this thing that is causing you an issue in life, but yet you know that it's probably going to could have a detrimental effect, say on your business, on your relationships. Yet you would rather than maybe confront it in a controlled way and start trying to improve yourself. Just be like, no, not doing it. Don't like it.
But I think lots of people are like that. So I'm going to refer to a study I read. I
still haven't done a study animation.
There's a study I read that they were talking to...
Sorry, did you ever used to watch Bullseye?
Yeah.
Do you remember the bit where they'd say a word or something and the bully would walk across kind of like scribbling like that? Can you please do an animation of there was a study and just have like a puppet just going across in a lab coat?
Okay, you're right.
Just walking from one side to the other, please.
They did a study on, I think it was 12 to around about 24, 25. And again, the way kids are brought up through different generations always changes, but again these kids were asked various questions about things that they didn't like, that they didn't experience. And for instance, if there was a certain type of food they didn't like, their parents would just go, all right, don't eat it then. If they had a problem at school, the parents would be I'll go and solve it at school or whatever like that. So their culpability to deal with things that cause them any kind of fear, aggro, whatever, they were constantly defended by their parents, as opposed to earlier generations where it was like, you got to go and have a fight at school or whatever, you got to fight up for yourself, you got to do this on your own. So there does seem to be, and that will always be, you know, we would have heard that from our parents, and our parents would have heard it from their parents. Oh, in my day it would have been different, but a lot more. I mean, they didn't exactly kind of express it as like mollycoddling, but it was kind of put forward in the terms that they're kind of,
you're losing life skills, aren't you?
well, in a way, but because the parents are kind of, it was a psychological paper that I was reading, and they were saying about, you know, kids being wrapped in kind of cotton wool, basically, and there does seem to be a different approach, because parents think, I don't want to put my children through what my parents put me through.
It's usually done through love, isn't it? It's a case.
Yeah, and the idea of kind of helicopter parenting,
yeah,
which you clarified for me, I know when we spoke about it before.
Mikey actually said, yes, I fully say as a 16-year-old, I don't like to call and would rather text in the workplace. We'll come back to that, because I was just going to say that.
Also, Leanne said when you were saying about people coming down.
Oh, I don't mind anyone joining us as long as they're nice to me and it'd be welcome and lovely to them. Oh, good. Lord Nick, do nippers have a fear of correct spelling? Yep, absolutely.
Well, if they did, then they would rather be on the phone.
But it's something my sister said about being a parent, and she said that, I know my child needs to get hurt. I know it needs to experience pain. It needs to experience this. She said, but it's so difficult, because all you want to do is protect them and love them and tell them everything's going to be all right. So I completely get that quandary of knowing this is probably, my child needs to understand the world it's in, and it needs to be able to defend, like it needs to be able to
to learn life skills. But the other side of that is you want to go, I'm going to defend you at all costs until my dying breath. Rob, you've got kids. How do you feel about that? How do you deal with that quandary?
But I remember what Mikey's saying at 16. Like when I was 16, I think mobiles, that was 1996. So mobiles were still fairly sort of in their infancy. So we didn't really have them for
baby
much.
ones.
Yeah, little baby ones. Just carry them around.
It was really like this.
I had to water them every day. And then they died. But no, those are the days where you could have a phone that you could just drop it down the toilet and it would still work. Or
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it was. This old yellow phone thing, literally a single line of text on it. And, you know, where you bought like a amount of texts and you'd have to send them by putting like, sort of like, hi, M8. So how we had to speak in as smaller character amounts as possible. But I remember being 16 and being really intimidated in the workforce. A lot of older people, they all seem to have this banter that I felt I couldn't keep up with.
But isn't that a natural thing?
Yeah.
You're coming from, especially at 16, I know I had to leave school at 16 and I wanted to stay on and I was actually invited to do a special technology course, but
somebody's doing well.
Well, I wasn't because my dad had already retired. My dad was really old when they had me, so I think he was like 45 or something like that when I was born.
Oh, blimey!
Yeah, and so I had to go and work because the family needed money. So I had to go and work, and I really hated it. I wanted to do this technology course and I wanted to go in other areas and stuff. But anyway, it is what it is, and you go into that environment and you are completely. You're 16. You've just been at school. You just know, you've been playing football. So you don't know how to then suddenly start. Right, you've got to be in an office. You've got to answer the phone to customers, and you've got to, when they come to the window and want a query about how something. Yeah. Knowing how to speak to them stuff. It's a steep curve and it's scary.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that, like, for example, going into. And I still get little twinges of it. If I go into, for example, like a builder's merchant or something, and you go in and you feel that you don't know enough about what you're asking for. So you go in and say, yeah, I'm after and you try and explain to them. And if you get the ones who kind of look at you like you're a complete simpleton, and there's a very strong intimidation that can come with that.
Of course.
But it's only through...
Anything you don't have confidence in, though, you're going to be intimidated by.
But it's only through exposure and finding ways to beat those hurdles and building your confidence up and being in that situation more and more so you learn to deal with it.
So the paper I was reading, the difference, though, that's happening from, say, when you were 16 to kids now that are 16, there's a certain... how do I say this? There's a certain element in society now where you have like, well, you shouldn't have to face that, or you shouldn't have to put up with that. You have a right. You have an entitlement to certain things. So what a lot of businesses are reporting is they'll have new kids start, and they'll say, but I don't want to get up and start at 9 o'clock. Like, I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
And where they're used to kind of, oh, well, you'll be let off this because you've got this problem, or you'll be let off this if you say this, that, and the other. You should still be entitled to that, and that's what they're expecting. And you're causing. I mean, the amount of children, young kids that join the, I should say, teenagers that join the workforce, where they're taking what they call mental days off, because they're saying, "Oh, this is giving me mental stress," and it's costing. There was a study done where they were costing it, and it's costing multiple millions to the. And it's discouraging employers from looking at 16 and 17-year-olds.
We'll talk a bit more about that. Actually, it's interesting.
So Lord Nick said, your sister is a wise woman, but I'm sure all of us parents are drawn towards the application of a house brick occasionally.
No comment. But yes. Rob says, the quandary I have is that the world is so different now to when I grew up. I would... where's that gone? I would prefer my girls to stay children for as long as possible, but a lot of life lessons I would like to teach them to be able to face the modern world. Yep. Mikey said, that's like when I done my work experience last year. I was working in London and just had to talk to people and work in kitchens, fixing stuff. Like even talking to a manager was just scary, but only because I'd never done it before. And that's the thing.
And the more that you do that, of course, you're going to learn a life skill.
Yeah, the more you are exposed to these things. And it's very easy to be exposed to something and then it hits you down like a hammer blow. You have a really bad experience and you get scared of it. But then in real life, if you're in a situation where you're still having to go and deal with it, you will have to find ways of coping. You'll have to find ways around it. But if people are going to come in and be, no, you don't have to, don't worry, you will never be able to get over that fear or, conquer that mountain that's just suddenly sprouting up in front of you.
So there again, I think that's something that everyone knows in reality or as an ideal. What they're finding in practice, though, is that because kids now are being brought up with very much that the mantra of, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
And also because very often you've got both parents working full-time jobs, busy. They've got a busy social life. I know a lot of the guys when I'm playing with and they've got kids, they say just all their time is taking their kids to this group, this nightclub, not nightclub, but this club, this activity and whatever else like that. A lot of things that certainly I was never afforded when I was a kid, because it was a very different structure then.
Yeah.
And that is the children are getting used to a certain remit around them, a certain scope around them where I should have all these things. I should be able to do these things. I'm never used to getting. I mean, that's what originally coined the term snowflake, was untouchable. Oh, I can't. No, well, I don't have to do it. Especially in America, they had that thing of no one loses a game. Everyone wins the game, or no one gets the winner's trophy. Everyone gets a trophy, and all these kinds of things. And so there's a different set of rules that are starting to happen, and that is just change and evolution, really. It's social evolution.
What was the thing we said to talk about that I've completely forgotten? We were going to come back to something. If anyone can remember what it was we were going to come back to, because it was an interesting subject and there was more to talk about it, please let us know, because I've completely forgotten.
Sorry, Mikey said there. Also, I think nowadays, my generation, like 16-year-olds, have no respect, or at least a low level of respect for older people in the workplace.
I think, to be honest,
that's really interesting,
I think
Mikey.
That's been the case, though. If you look at every generation going back, they've always said about young people having no respect. So whether it was kind of in the 50s where you had, was it Teddy Boys and all the, so they were kind of the rebels.
I would kind of say, if you go back to the Victorian era or certain earlier eras, I think you had a lot of people that were, so for instance, if you go back even further, tribes and stuff like that, the elders were always respected because they were known to have the ultimate knowledge. They had the collection of experiences and stuff like that, and they were more revered and treasured. And then as time goes on, that became less relevant. and therefore the respect for that came out. Then
I mean, you've always had
definitely in the 80s and 90s there was a real kind of worship for youth. Youth was everything, you know. All the groups that came out. I remember working in the industry then, and like if you were anything like girls over 17 or 19 were considered too old to take on by a management company, which is just fucking ridiculous.
Weird.
And then you in the early kind of 2000s and stuff, you then had a kind of slight resurgence of older people. Bands like Nickelback came out where they looked a bit older and stuff like that, and it wasn't just all about everything was teeny boppers. So, you know,
do you think they're
ebb and
because
flow.
obviously in every culture, in every generation, there's always been your tearaways and your naughty ones, but is it because
you're a bit of a naughty
you're a bit of a
one.
naughty rascal? But is there something now where, as time's gone on and we've been more kind of, oh no, you can't do that, you can't say that, you can't do that, you can't do punishment because of the effect it will have? There is more of a change where kids now feel that they can get away with more.
Yeah,
because they're like,
so
you can't do anything. Like when the police pull kids go, you literally can't do anything.
Yeah.
I know you can't.
Yeah.
So therefore I will do whatever I want.
So human beings, famously, the only thing that stops a human being doing something is a deterrent. Now that can either be a physical deterrent, a mental deterrent, or if you have it within your own morality, creates a deterrent.
Yeah.
If you don't have a deterrent, what's to stop you doing anything? Because basically, as human beings, we're missing some of these comments. We need to go back. Have you got your mouse with you, dude?
Yes.
So as human beings,
I'm just going over here just for fun.
is that your nipple?
That should be the sound of there's a study. I can't
Way
find
above
mine.
I think mine was better.
A little gong. Should we get one of those little
It's
ones?
kind of a go.
It is, isn't it?
I've forgotten what we were saying now. Anyway, it was something someone fell over.
Can you read some comments? And I was like, I need a wee, even though I went just before you came around.
Right, so where are we? Yeah, so Rob said, I really try and instill in my eldest that there are things she has to do, even if she doesn't want to, or someone else has said the opposite. My brother-in-law, wait a minute, let me move that up. Can't get this bloody thing to move. Come on, idiot. Someone else. My brother-in-law is the epitome of I don't want to, and is now unemployable. Oh, Rob, there's so many people like that, though. Again, the thing that us humans are so good at is taking the path of least resistance, because it takes so much effort to try and instill change, to change the way you think about things, to do things differently. Lord Nick, being mentally stressed used to be called life challenge or problem solving. I despair for the current youngsters who would rather make an excuse instead of actually working the problem. So I absolutely understand what you're saying there, Lord Nick. However, though, I'm sure our generations, our parents' generations, it's always the elders that look at the newer generation and go, oh my God, they're falling apart. So I was going to say, before you popped out for your onesie wee, in the 80s there was a big movement. It was outlawed to, you can't slap your children, you can't, and you could only discipline them in a certain way. So there was always the extreme cases where kids were being terribly abused and battered, and you had all the
stories of kids being basically beaten black and blue by a father with a belt and everything like that. Yeah,
and I know that well. And the generation that went before said, well, it never did us any harm. You know, we turned out fine. And then there was lots of studies at the time saying, well, there's lots of violent criminals that's exactly how they were treated, and that's what they were used to. That was the pattern of life that was given.
You just didn't have the knowledge or the understanding to know that harm was caused at the time.
Yeah, exactly. But then what we've seen is that if you can't create a deterrent through a physical sting, a physical hurt, how do you create that so then people will say, well, I take away your privileges, or you had the naughty step, or there was new and improved ways to try and deal with it. And one of the biggest things that has been found is that it's actually by rewarding the good things and giving that dopamine punch in your chemistry that actually encourages you to do positive things, or the things that you're rewarded for, as opposed to giving attention for the things that are bad. You definitely see that in dog training.
Yeah.
You know, and again, we are pack animals and stuff like that. But I think that's again a challenge where you've got two parents that are just super busy. They've got so much going on. They're trying to keep their household together. Bills are going through the roof. There's so much in their lives, and then you've got kids, and you know, it was always a quick way to give them a quick wrap around the ears, and that would show them. But what would often happen is that, you know, oh well, they would not do it in front of their parents, but they'd try and get away. But then the other side of that coin is you get. I remember a friend of mine. He used to run a really big nightclub in Essex in Purfleet. Do you remember the casino rooms?
No, I don't actually.
So it was a really big concern at the time, and they had some. There used to be an Esso station that was next to them, and a group of travellers had moved in, and they on the land there, and they couldn't get them off. And he said he would be going into the Esso station, and some of the kids, and the fact that the travellers doesn't mean anything. It's just this is what this exact example was. The traveller kids would go in there, and they would start stealing, and. Sometimes the patrons, the people that were running it, just got fed up because they would say, you know, we can't do that. And they would go, well, I know you can't do anything about it. You can't hit me. You can't do anything. You touch me, I'm going to call the police, and you'll be done for paedophilia and stuff like that. And their parents wouldn't do anything. The police wouldn't do anything. So they had to then start, like where all the sweets were and stuff like that. They had to keep it behind the counter and things. Yeah. And it had to change. But that's one example of kids kind of just know, well, I can't be touched. So therefore, you take away the deterrent. What's to stop someone?
And especially
I want something, I'll go and get it. If nothing stops me, why would I not do that
at
again?
the ages of where you're basically instilling into a young person the vast majority of what they are going to be as an adult.
Yeah.
If you get it wrong, that's the rest of their life.
But that's a really hard thing, is to try and to instill morality in people, because again, you've got this big nature and nurture thing. I know Leanne said before she studied that. Hi, Dave. Nice circus tavern.
Hello, Dave.
Sorry, I just remember that. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Dave. Oh, that's yeah, my wife now, Dave.
Where that thing of, you know, you could bring up children.
Hello, Sonia, as well.
The same. Hi, Sonia. Bring up children the same way, and depending on their actual nature, will mean whether they. I mean, my brother and I are just so different.
In so many ways.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, that's again nurture and nature. Can we go back? We missed something
there,
didn't we?
There was. I do believe.
I was trying to move that bloody thing. I couldn't move it.
TL said, I'm on a Facebook site for boomers. I get tired of them putting down the younger generation, constantly criticising the younger generation. Respect should be earned. We have a talk about this, about respect being earned, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think, I agree with you, respect should be almost automatic, but can be lost very quickly.
No, I don't believe that at all. No, I believe exactly as TL said.
See, I thought you said that because we talked about when people have to earn your respect.
Yeah, people, you should always. So that I think that
I start off in a neutral position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and then if someone behaves nicely and stuff, you start to trust them more, and you start to respect them more. You shouldn't ever start with going, well, I'm going to call you an arsehole now, and then try and get above that. Yeah, absolutely. You should be open to someone, and then depending on how they behave. So, for instance, say there's someone who's been ill recently that you know, and her and her husband are very they demand respect. They haven't earned it. And so what happens is they upset people wherever they go, because they have such entitlement. Whereas someone who behaves nice, is kind and considerate, You go, well, I'm going to give them so much more leeway. I trust them.
Yeah.
So you earn respect in that way. But some people kind of feel like they demand respect when they haven't earned it.
So would you say you'd start at a 0 point? So
yeah, absolutely. So I misunderstood what you're saying.
So this is respect is any plus a gradual increase of respect, then disrespect, or
someone treats you badly, someone doesn't keep to their word. Like for me, someone gives you their word, that should be kind of in stone. That's I was always taught that's a mark of a
word is my bond.
Yeah, exactly. And I really, really believe that.
Nick says the worst part of all is the excuses of all this is the excuses dilute the importance of seriousness of true mental health problems. This is the situation in so many different fields, isn't there? It's people basically sort of jumping on bandwagons and diluting it down to such a degree that the people who are, whether it's movements, whether it's medical situations, whether it's, say, mental health, whether it's the main core people who are probably the one who need the help the most, just get...
I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay, so for example, what he means is with, like, for example, dilute the importance of seriousness of true mental health. So you've got, if everybody in the world is saying my child acts in a certain way, that they must have ADHD and autism, and everyone is then trying to clamour for that. The people who, like we know, for example, who suffer with quite severe autism and ADHD, if they may be then because of such an influx, broad net, they can't get the medications they need to treat. They can't get the same support and help. So the same as, for example, with I've talked about this with sort of the Me Too movement before. You had the idea was to confront men in positions of power who abuse that power by doing inappropriate things with women, and then you were getting like women who'd been sexually assaulted, who'd been raped, who had been gone through some of the most horrific things by people in this situation. But then you had people who were saying, well, basically, I had a leg touched by a man, and that's akin to rape.
Yeah.
And people saying things like that. Where you're like, well, no.
I know there was a lady who said that some bloke, as he in the street or in I think it was in a lift actually, and he caught the lady eye and he said, she had a bow in or something like that. And he said, your hair looks really nice. And whether it was a clumsy way to try and get talking to a woman he quite liked, whether he just meant it as a kind compliment, she then went on social media to say how she had been sexually assaulted in a lift, and that then you kind of go, well, is that truly sexually assault? I can understand maybe you felt uncomfortable by it, but does that not then decry someone who's physically been sexually assaulted? So but then I think you're always in danger of, it's where you put a line on something, and so someone's line is going to be maybe lower than you would, and someone else's line is going to be higher. With, you say, oh well, sexual assault is only if it's rape, or sexual assault is only if there's there's an official definition of what rape is. It's having something inserted in an orifice. But then if someone went to move something off your hair and they got their finger in your ear, would you then say, oh well, that constitutes by the definition? And because it's really hard to write certain things in law to be able to be 100% watertight,
because life is a big grey area, isn't it? With so many... And
also, everyone's got a different idea of something. Yeah. So I understand what Lord Nick's saying there. That can you just go back to so before he said about the parents instill there? No, but so he said it dilutes the importance of seriousness of true mental health. But I would say from a lot of the stuff that I've read, that seems to be a problem of defining what is true mental health, because certain scientists, sociologists, psychiatrists will say it's at a certain bar. Other people will say it's at a different bar. You get society that says, oh, different parts of society say it's at a different bar. And it's hard to stipulate that. So that's the only thing I would say kind of corresponding to that, Nick, is just that's the biggest problem, because everyone's worst day is their particular worst day, but that can be my worst day is not going to be a patch on some young kid who's growing up in Syria, war-torn Syria, or what people in Ukraine are going through, or something like
exactly.
that.
Someone who's just had his entire family wiped out in front of his eyes in Ukraine,
or someone who's suffering with PTSD, and I'm having I'm haunted by a bad dream or something like that. It's so subjective, and especially where you get the scientific community are struggling. I mean, even you talking about ADHD and what was autism. Thank you. It's although there's tests for those things, how those tests are interpreted varies greatly between practitioners. And not making eye contact with someone will say, "Oh, that's it, you're definitely autistic," whereas another
practitioner.
Yeah, would you say practitioner or
expert consultant?
Yeah, expert. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. I'm falling apart here.
That's
would say, "Oh no, that's maybe one element, but then that's counted by this or something else or whatever."
Yes, that could be life experience. You may be just quite shy. You may,
and there's there's a growing number of psychiatrists that are saying we need to be able to quantify autism, because there's too many people being qualified as autistic when it's not. They just have maybe a personality quirk or something like that. And there's other people saying, no, but those personality quirks, that then means it's autistic. But then you get this kind of, well, what's neuronormative and what's neurodiversive? And that is a big challenge to be able to define, because it's just so varied.
I think we talked about this before. There was an interesting thing one of my students' mums was talking about in a psychology degree, that if, for example, we are finding there are more people who would be classed as ADHD, and they saying the sort of personality traits that they say are attributed to that could equal kind of like 50% of the population. So she said what is likely to happen is if they realise that, for example, standard education doesn't seem to work with people of that ilk who have those kind of challenges. Said if it reaches that point, then we may have to reevaluate how we teach people, and that's, again, if you can teach people in a way that's more inclusive, that's better, that means they're going to get better outcomes, then I think that's definitely something worth looking into. But
absolutely.
But also the thing is, if 50% of the population are ADHD, then again, we're all on the spectrum. Are we just going to end up saying, well, no, basically we're all human, and some of us? So then
everyone's going to be either neurodiversive or neuronormative. You won't have neuronormative then.
And you'll always get your people who are, like, we know people, friends of ours who've got a son who's very autistic. I know people I know several people with very autistic kids where literally everything their child does pretty much dictates their life as parents. So they can't listen to certain things, they can't watch certain things. Their child will, because of meltdowns, because of their own specific ways, because of the patterns of behaviour, because of the regimes they have to have in place, because if anything's out of the ordinary, they will just collapse.
Yeah.
Their whole life
revolves around that.
Yeah. And
then you have the other side of it, there was a study that I read a long time ago. It was, I think, between 2012 and about 2018, and it was quite a large study as well, and it was done in America. And just kids that were excitable were being diagnosed as ADHD and then being medicated for it. And it was having so many spurious outcomes for that.
Yeah.
And again, that's why it was being looked at, because there was doctors later on saying this child should have never been prescribed any kind of medication for ADHD or even qualified as ADHD.
It's very difficult, isn't it? Because every human being is a complete unique entity.
We're all the same, but there's also such difference. There's less so in our DNA. You talk about DNA. That less than 0.1% difference accounts for. No, it's not. It's 0.001, I think it is. Accounts for all the difference in mankind, whether you're talking about any kind of disabilities, hair colours, eyes, all these kind of different things. We share, famously, 40% DNA with a banana. We are 98.9% in common with the great ape, but yet we are massively different,
And then that varies from each individual.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and then you start to nail that down.
People tend to, like when I talk to people and they sort of talk about struggling to understand, what someone else, like, why would that person do this? Why would that person do that? I said, because you have to realise that every human being is a combination of billions upon trillions of micro interactions and environmental changes in their life that have pushed them and shaped them into what they are. That's why none of us are the same.
Yeah.
So therefore it's, when you're trying to label people as this, that, and the other, it's like, okay, so this person is presenting this behaviour. Is it nature, nurture, medical, psychological,
environmental, socioeconomical? Yeah, socio-economical. Can we go back? We're missing some of the things. So we did Lord Nick there. So we've
done
Dave?
this. Yeah, a lot of this is because parents.
So Dave.
Yeah, here we were. Nick said a lot of this is because parents instill a sense of superiority and entitlement. Their children can do no wrong. That is one of the big things I saw. We talked about this before, about the change where I remember going to school, and if I hadn't, or me and my friends hadn't done well, the teacher would say, look, they haven't done this, and the parents would be annoyed at the children, say, well, you obviously haven't been working hard enough, you haven't been doing this. I hear more instances now of if a teacher says your child isn't doing, they're like, well, that's your fault, that is. It's nothing to do with my child is fucking amazing. It's you who have failed him. And it's, again, as I said, there's no humbleness there, is there?
No, but then again, doesn't that reflect the entitlement of the parents?
Yes.
There was a girl I was dating a little while back, and she had a young daughter. And she was getting to the age that she was starting to learn to lie, and she was lying. And she was saying, her daughter liked this particular boy at school, and she only likes this boy at school. And one of the other, I think the teacher said, oh, she's been sending another boy love letters. And she said, I know that's all rubbish. I said, so how do you know that rubbish? She said, well, a mother of that boy said that, yes, he had received love letters, but my daughter said she didn't, so I believe her. And I said, but, that shows her development, that, maybe she's getting to that stage now, she's starting to lie. And the first thing she said to me is, are you calling my daughter a slut? It was like, no, I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, that's that moment when you go, what just happened?
Yeah, and I was standing there with Missy as well, and so it wasn't like I'm making this up, and it was straight into
defensive.
Warrior.
My child could do no wrong.
Yeah, there's no way. When the teacher's saying that, you've got the parent of the other child has said, no, she keeps sending love letters to this other kid. Yeah. So where's the fire? What's the problem? But it's that thing of it's as if
is that because again, I'm not a parent, but something a comedian said once when people he said I'm not a parent. He said, so people say that I shouldn't be commenting parenting things. He said, I'm not a pilot either, but if I see a plane in a tree, I can say the guy fucked up.
So I've heard quite a few people say that. There was another girl I was dating some time back, and her son now has just got into so much trouble.
I remember you telling me, yeah.
And she was going, people are always giving me advice on how to bring up my child, but I'm his mother. I know best. And I was like, so why do you feel you know best? Do you have any qualifications or anything? I was just asking her.
Yeah.
She's going, no, but he's my child. So I said, so why? Why do you feel that if I said I don't have any qualifications in music, but I make a really good living from doing it, and I've got, you can look at what I've done. I've had a fairly good career in music.
You have a track record.
So I don't need a qualification to know about music. Equally, I've studied a lot about psychology and stuff, but why can no one know anything better than you? And I think in a nub that reveals so much. There's such a pride and a defensiveness, and again, going back to what Lord Nick said, there is that kind of thing that I know best and I can't be found at fault with.
Is that because it
and her son's now, had trouble with the police and drugs, and just he's gone down such a bad path.
But with like the ego thing, is it because that if I have to admit that my child is doing wrong, I may have to admit that as a parent, I may have failed.
I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of one of the things is you love that child so much you want to defend them, and anything that you feel is besmirching them, you go into warrior mode. But there's also as well, and I'm drawing on what I've read from psychology and sociology. There's a lot invested because it's part of you, therefore it's part of. So you can probably take criticism more easily about yourself than you can about your child. You know,
I suppose it's similar to, for example, if you're religious or you just happen to know about religion. So, for example,
that's another thing as well. People will defend to the nth degree their religion with such vigor.
Yeah, if they are personally invested in it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're not, and you're just talking about religion and someone criticises it, then you're less likely to go, oh yeah, you might be right, yeah, possibly, but if you believe or you
get the same thing with politics, and you get the same thing with sadly football and stuff like that, where people have this ownership that they feel that this is beyond, you cannot touch this subject, when you should be able to talk about anything constructively and debate it.
Right, Dave says, I've got to say Mikey's grown up for his age, being around people like yourself from the age of 8. I'm proud. He is a good lad, I have to admit. He's a good egg. I'm proud dad, as you'll know, but I've got to give credit to Mikey for always being polite and well-mannered 99% of the time. Thankfully, my daughter is the same. No, it's really
Mikey
good.
is lovely. Mikey is a true gem.
Sorry,
I love
I'm
Mikey.
peeking there a little bit on the old desk. Lord Nick, some children are just little shits and parents label them on the spectrum because this isn't educating the little darlings. I'm not going to disagree with you there at all. Neil, I have to agree with Nick. I'm uneducated and ADHD and autistic, but I can't help but think it's an easy get out for lazy parents.
I'd maybe say, Neil, there may be an element for that, but I think a lot of parents, again, they're bombarded with so many things. You should have vaccines. You shouldn't have vaccines. This is going to kill your child. No, this is going to help your child. I think it's such a soup. It's the same thing with, if you look at social media and kind of political views and stuff, and the amount of shit that people are just so swamped with crap information. And before, where it used to be like, if it came on the news, you could trust that it had rigor. The journalists had to go to 2 or more sources, and now everything's by kind of fucking rumor, So I think it's. And again, that's just my own opinion, Neil. But I think that sometimes it can be really hard for parents to know.
But I think
exactly what it is.
It wasn't that long ago when we think about like the family structure and the family unit that you would have, for example, multiple generations living in a household together. They would have a lot more children, and because the parents couldn't helicopter parent, hello Matt, you handsome bastard.
Hello, mate.
Because when you only have 1 or 2 children. So basically, since contraception came in and people have smaller families, you can therefore spend more time focusing that on one individual. When you had bigger families and they're all running around, like my nan, she had, I think like
25.
Yeah, they're like 6 or 7, and they all look after each other. They all get each other into trouble. The parents don't have time to focus on the individuals as much. So therefore, the kids kind of grow up in a bit more of a worldly environment,
and
where
it's a very social environment.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
They also help bring up each other.
Yeah. And that's because we've now lost that. Parents are far more so focused on the individual and all the scary things that are out there in the world. And therefore, that's why a lot of things are changing.
I think over the last 8 to 10 years, social media has had such a
it's been brutal.
Like for children growing up over the last 10 to 8 years, 10 to 8 years, 8 to 10 years, they've just been like, kids at sort of 3 and 4 are constantly on iPads now.
Yeah.
They're just, go to their rooms, headphones on, iPad, and computers, and that is such a massive element of their life.
And I used to say this when people would talk about say, spending all their time in front of a screen, and I think, well, me and my friends, when we were young and games consoles started coming out, and we would spend entire weekends, but then someone rightfully pointed out, said, yeah, but you did take breaks. You would go out and do other things. You would, to play on a console, you'd have to go upstairs, sit down, put the TV on, but then you'd go out for dinner, or you'd then go to school. You would get a break from the screens, whereas now everyone is just
But there's a
constantly fixated.
different social environment. So where
Yeah.
kids used to go out on their bikes and just spend all day out on their
Yeah,
bikes.
you'd
and
play
stuff.
computer games with your friends.
Yeah.
And
So
you would
that-
still have...
But you were still in quite a social aspect,
Yeah.
whereas people are quite, they're connected socially, but also uniquely quite individually
Isolated
as
as
well.
well.
And also there's definitely, since the boom and bust of the 80s and stuff, there's definitely been a far bigger increase on individualism, money, greed. The mantra of greed.
There's
is
less
good.
about the collective and all being
And
part of something.
social elements. Before when again going back, you were brought up in a tribe. It was a very social thing. The tribe looked after all the kids. All the kids would respect all the adults, and you had this very social thing. Our grandparents' parents would talk about. We'd all be in each other's houses. You wouldn't lock your door. It was a very social thing on the street. Everyone would help each other. If anyone. Now we're just so individuals. Very often, and neighbours don't even know each other. We're missing some of the stuff here.
The number of people I have come across self-diagnosed with depression who label themselves as clinically...
I think you may have missed Rob's one. Which was a bit further up.
Yes, sorry, Rob. People who flippantly say that a poorly behaved child is on the spectrum really grinds my gears. Unfortunately, just to get out for parents who don't realise what having ADHD or autism, etc., entails. I agree to a degree. I know that there's also people who have got kids who really, really struggle. A good friend of mine.
You've had a few students in here who have been in that situation.
Yeah, definitely. Where one of my students, bless her, from one day to the next, she can be up there completely drained, will have to go to bed for hours because she just literally cannot function. And having medication basically really leveled her out. It enabled her to concentrate better at school and things like that. But when they couldn't get her medication, she just went straight back to that kind of polar. So, for some people, it is a case of, I can see my child is struggling, and is this the thing that's going to help get some better understanding? Is it going to mean I get support as well? So,
but again, like, you didn't have things like support before, so it was down to the parents to put time and effort in. Now, I think a load of parents just don't have that time. And again, the change has been that things have exponentially gone through the roof with money and budgets and stuff like that, and also the idea that having holidays, all these things are far more important to a lot of people than the social aspects of contentment, maybe.
Nick says a number of people we've just read that one. The expert in a child-parent relationship is the child. They haven't been polluted by all the crap parenting books, etc. A real parent makes it up as they go. Yeah, I think, again, but that's also comes down to...
The expert is the child, though. But the child generally, especially a young child, all they understand is what they want. So you watch a baby, and that's our kind of core programming, without any of our morality or understanding. Like, babies won't come out of the womb knowing how to share.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I
no, your job as
personally agree with
your
that.
job, especially in the really early years, is to stop your child from killing itself.
But also as well, you're instilling all these little values into them. So if you've got an only child, it's hard to instill that idea of sharing as much as, say, someone who's got a few children. Well, you've had your first children, then the second child comes along, and you're going, right, you need to share what you've got with the other child, etc. So yeah, I don't.
But
don't know
like, even a friend of mine, she's got a 9-month-old, and that 9-month-old is in the phase of trying to hit things, and that simple thing of, no, you don't hit mummy, you don't, instilling that, no, there is a consequence.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that child doesn't know.
Until it hits that barrier, again, without the deterrent, what do you have?
You have to set those barriers in place.
Yeah. So that's
unless
we've
just misinterpreted what you said.
And then Lord Nick said, how many of these parenting experts are actually parents? Well, I'd say quite a lot of them, dude.
Yeah, I think you can be.
Yeah.
The thing is, you can observe. You don't have to be in it to observe. So sometimes it's actually, if you're an outsider looking in, sometimes you can see things that the person involved in the middle of it can't see.
So, as a question to you, Lord Nick, then, would you say if you've not suffered severely with depression, you cannot understand depression? Or if you've not had PTSD, you can't understand PTSD? Or if you're not autistic yourself, there's no way you can understand autism? X is the unknown quantity, and spur is the drip that works under pressure. Not sure.
So yeah, so best teacher,
good or bad is by example. Yeah. I think
I learnt more from other
ideally,
people's examples of fucking up than I have of fucking up my own.
I think you have to fuck up a lot yourself, though. But then you see things, you learn things, like the idea of. So, for instance, I was brought up in. I was born
under a bad sign,
left out in the cold. I was a lonely man. I was brought up in oh, come on now! I was brought up in a Roman Catholic family, and reading the Bible and the stories and the concepts of that. We had to study RE at school and stuff. Went to obviously Catholic schools, and it was only as I kind of got to 18, 19 when I really started to study a load of other theology and other religions and stuff like that. That made me kind of not adhere to any religious dogma or any organised religion, very much so. But I still learnt those things. So I don't know, maybe that is example if you're reading from a book, would you say? Or maybe it's not, I don't know.
Well, I suppose by example...
if you like the concept of something, then...
Well, a story, being told information, I suppose all of those are examples. So, for example, if I say to you...
then I'd agree with you, Theo.
There is a story where a man puts his hand in a fire and gets it severely burnt. Because the story is, that fire is fucking hot, you're going to get burnt. So you can learn by example from that, going, okay, this guy did this thing, it didn't end very well, maybe I won't do that thing too.
Or, I'll put the warning lights on when I come across that and sort of test it.
Or the people taking certain medications. If so, like the one you were talking about, where basically all your weight drops off and you struggle to put weight on. Yeah. I have learnt by example the fact that I'm not going to go near that fucking drug ever in my life.
You're thinner than thin anyway. There's not one person in the world who would tell you fucking eat something.
I told you I have to put a matchstick through my head so I don't go down the plug hole. I just spin there like that for a little while.
Right, Lord Nick.
I've always said that having depression is like belonging to a huge club. Members understand, but outside. I suppose in a way that's kind of like talking about what we were talking about privilege before. If you're not in that situation, would you say it's a similar thing?
So would you say then you don't understand post-traumatic stress? Would you say you don't understand autism?
I can say I didn't fully appreciate what depression felt like or the true intricacies until I experienced it.
But is that because you never really took the time to study it?
Possibly.
So very often, if something doesn't apply to us, we go, fuck it, who cares?
Yeah.
But then when, I've broken my arm, now I know what a broken arm feels like.
You're a very learned fellow. Have you ever... No, not really, it's all bollocks, isn't it, mate? But have you ever, for example, like you've learned about something or you've been interested in the subject, but when you've actually experienced it, then you've gone, oh, hang on, there's elements of this that, as an outsider perspective...
So the last couple of weeks I've had kidney stones.
Yeah, it's not been fun, has it, for you?
But I knew about kidney stones, so as it happened, I was going... So when anything happens, I instantly go, right, I'll try and fault find. And I go, all right, it's got... And when you said about Carrie having a similar thing a little while back, and I said, that sounds like kidney stones. Or when we've spoken about any kind of medical thing...
That's a very good point, though. Could you... Like, you've read that it's some of the most indescribable pain that you can have. Having the actual pain, did that give you a better understanding now of what indescribable pain feels like?
No.
Not at all?
I would say hand on heart, no.
So you could have imagined what you felt. So going through it, you don't feel has given you a better understanding in any kind of way, shape, or form than before, just purely through academic knowledge.
I don't want to say. My honest feeling is not really. I didn't find any surprises, and I kind of don't want to say that, but my honest answer is it didn't really surprise me anywhere.
You're just too bloody brilliant.
No, it's not.
I know.
It's not that. I think if
that's fair enough. That's why I asked the question.
If you've tried to learn about stuff, and it depends how much you try and learn about something. I've just always been interested in stuff, so I read about, and I can't sleep, so I read about stuff.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any elements where I went, oh, that was out of the blue. I was happy that it seemed to be moving along quicker and like it wasn't months.
I mean, I could say, for example, like something like endometriosis in women. So
I'm aware that I would have a lot of trouble trying to understand the pain of that. My sister had that, and she had that for a load of years, and then she had to have hysterectomy.
Yeah, I've talked to various women about. I've interviewed women about it, and hearing the horror stories of what they've gone through, what it must feel like. Now, I know that I cannot imagine. I have
that pain.
No,
but I have some kind of understanding through different frames of reference. So, for instance, you're talking about depression. Having depression is like belonging to a huge club. Members understand, but outsiders may empathise, but never truly know. I think you could argue that, and I would say, yep, that's fair enough. I can really appreciate what Lord Nick's saying there. Equally, I think with anything, you can have a frame of reference, and you can understand to some point
through possible empathy.
But if you have depression and I have depression, they're still going to be different.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So how can you ever have 100% understanding?
This is what we
anything?
were talking about before, weren't we? Yeah. Where can you ever really understand another human being's existence and
Let's
life?
talk about something everyone's had, right? Heartbreak.
Yeah.
And you've had a high, being in love, you've had the high points, and being heartbroken, you've had low points. But depending on your personality, depending on your empathy, depending on your time, your body chemistry, some people are more empathic, some people are less empathic. Some people can't enunciate well.
Scotchio.
Chris Waddle. Everyone's experience is going to be the same. It's not going to be 100% absolute. Yeah. But we have a frame of understanding. So that's kind of I don't know.
Until you experience something you can never truly understand, you can come close, but education is not 100%. No, I agree. But
what you experience is going to be different to somebody else who's maybe having a worse time of it. So are you saying then you can't be 100%?
I think you're right. I don't think we can ever truly understand what it is like to be that other person and to go through what they're going through. It's
too easy to go, you just don't understand, you don't know, you've not been through it. You know, the famous thing, Vietnam.
Yeah.
You weren't there, man. You didn't see what we see. You didn't hear what we heard. But everyone's got certain things they can draw on with a frame of reference. Sometimes you can't. But everyone's experience is going to be different.
Yeah, same as death, losing somebody. So everyone's
just saying, oh, you've had depression, I've had depression, therefore we understand depression 100%. I disagree with that personally.
Yeah,
I disagree with that because
I think
what you've gone through.
We may have kind of more, I suppose, of a common frame of reference, having been both involved in something to do with that. But again, I won't have experienced in my depression what Nick has gone through.
No, I'm not, Nick. I'm really not. Anyway, let's read what Homer said.
The BBC News.
We can agree to disagree. Everyone's got different opinions.
Yeah.
But saying that someone's overthinking it and kind of like, well, you know, you're really overthinking this.
Yeah.
No. I think that's just looking down a little bit. But then that's my reaction.
Yeah,
Maybe
the reason we do these, me and Simon have the kind of conversations we do, because we are so interested in the human condition, what makes us tick, all the little intricacies. We love deep dives. That's why we have. That's why we were talking for an hour before we even came on.
Right. Let's read what Homer said.
The BBC News has a story that there needed to be more restrictions on certain medications brought online due to people getting side effects because they were not reading the medication leaflets. Surely it is the responsibility of the patient to read what they are putting in their bodies. Learning about various situations or problems can only help. Yeah, I think, again, if you're given a huge list of these are all the possible side effects, and they have to cover...
I'm not sure if there was a story, I don't know if this is what you mean, there was a story on the news about a guy who was taking hair supplement tablets, and there's certain side effects with it, and then he was saying, well, I was never advised because I'd gone online. So he had read,
I see.
These tablets will help you if you're losing hair. And again, I'm not sure if this is the same thing or it's something different. he said that I've taken these supplements and now I'm having side effects. No one warned me. They should have told me. They shouldn't have allowed me to get the tablets online. So first of all, he went online because he thought, well, I can get it and there won't be any checks and it'll be nice and easy to get. But then when he got the tablets, it says every type of medication says, right, these are the known side effects, and everything that he said was happening to him was listed. And he said, like, and then I got depression, and he was already having trouble anyway because he was feeling very self-conscious about losing his hair and stuff like that. So and he was saying, it's outrageous that these companies, but he also
he has culpability.
He's the one who is in charge of doing that. So
Who said yes? That was the story.
Oh, excellent. So this was only like I think tail end of last week or something, and I just found that there's been quite a few of these things where people are going, oh, everyone in the world should tell me what everything is, or that I need. It's not so talking about Ozempic, which we were talking about earlier, and there's a famous celebrity that's been taking it, and then she wasn't particularly overweight to begin with, but she wanted to be super thin, and now she's saying that even though she stopped taking the tablet, she's unable to put weight on it, and quite a few people have had this same thing. But the tablet said that. But people go, well, I'll take it on the gamble it doesn't affect me. And then it does. And then they go, oh, why didn't someone tell me about this?
Yeah.
But again...
People don't want to be... People are always looking to blame, aren't they? They don't want...
And again, that's a very natural human condition. But at the same time, we have to take... Again, this is just my opinion. I think that people have to take responsibility for their actions.
It's like walking down the road on your phone, and this is just one of my things. If you're walking down the road looking at your phone and you fall in a hole and then you blame the hole...
That actually happened.
Yes.
This happened, I think I'm sure it was kind of August last year. There was a lady was walking, and they had, it was a telegraph company, I think, they were working, and they had a manhole open, and she walked past the barrier was out. She hit the barrier, went round it, and then fell down the hole. And then she was trying to sue the company for because she said they should have had I don't know, some sort of iron cladding or something around the thing,
a bunker built over the top of it.
But that exact thing happened, and she was pursuing them through the courts. It was just bizarre. I find that really, really, really odd. Right, shall we go to another subject?
It's actually 20 past 10.
Oh shit! Sorry.
That's all right. It's been fun. Right, so we managed to get through one of my subjects, but that's all right. It's fine. We knew it was going to happen.
Oh, God, what a couple of fucking idiots.
But please remember, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about these subjects, we are deeply interested in not only being challenged on it, we're not sitting here thinking that we know the be-all and everything.
Yeah, the whole point is we're debating.
Yes, so. we are very humble in all the things. We know how much we don't know about life.
There's too much we don't know.
We have our opinions, but we like to have them challenged because we like, if people can make us see different things, different points of view, that's where the interesting shit lies in life. So thank you very much for joining us for our delirious rambling through various topics, but it did go on a journey. I felt it went of its own natural course. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Lovely to see you all. Are you out this weekend, gig-wise?
Yeah, I'm with Saviours and Sons of Southpaw, but I'm not sure which days or where.
I've got a weekend off.
Oh, really?
Yes, so going to take...
So you were was it last Friday? You were with a new band, weren't you?
Oh, yes.
How did it go?
It went pretty well.
I know I asked you on text,
they do sort of a lot of the old sort of school, sort of more rock and roll type things. And
were you on drums or bass?
I was on bass. So, but yeah, really, really nice. They are called the Noisy Neighbours. They're very, very lovely bunch of people.
Nice. Where were you playing?
We were at the Casa in Dunmow. So it was one of those ones where people, you could tell very early on, lots of people, not a very big space, and there's nothing to protect the band from people.
It gets unruly quite quickly.
Yes, and you could spot the people who had no sense of spatial awareness very, very early on. Anyone who's a musician out there, you know what this feels like. Even before the band has started, you can clock the troublemaker.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Take care.
Thank you all so
Mwah.
much for joining in and having a chat with us. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, it's lovely to
so,
spend time with you all. So you take care, all right, everyone. Much
And,
love. And
be
we'll see
kind.
you. Yes, look after each other.
We haven't done that.